Now, the greatest radio shows of all time.
Suspense.
The Shadow Node.
Washington calling David Harding, counter-spy.
Classic radio theater.
The Great Gildersleeve.
Fibber McGee and Molly.
Dragnet. Gunsmoke.
The Lone Ranger.
Now, step back into our time machine with your host, Wyatt Cox.
Good evening, friends of the Inner Sanctum.
Dane Clark stars in an episode of Crime in Peter Chambers. This episode is entitled Masquerade Party. It was originally broadcast on NBC July 13th, 1954.
Crime and Peter Chambers. Created by Henry Kane, transcribed and starring Dane Clark. Private investigator, duly licensed and duly sworn, Peter Chambers.
You're a private eye. That's your business. Anything else? That's for laughs. This one figures for a lot of laughs, and you're being paid for it, which adds a rare quality to the laughter. You're at the apartment of a jeweler, George Reiner, and you're being invited to a masquerade party at the Riverdale mansion of a famous, or is it infamous millionaire, Robbie Tamville. And who hasn't heard of Robbie Tamville?
And I'd like you to get there before I do, Mr. Chambers. All the arrangements have been made. What will you wear?
Well, I don't quite know, Mr. Reiner. You sprung this on me rather quick-like.
Oh, man of your resourcefulness. Come now, Mr. Chambers. Think of your reputation.
Yeah, I'm thinking.
Tonight, 8 o'clock.
Well, let me see now. Well, I've got an idea. Something that's never been done before.
Yes?
Pirate's costume.
Good.
No patch over the eye.
Very good. And just so that I'll be sure, don't wear a sword. Then I'll know for certain that you're my pirate.
Okay, Mr. Reiner, I'll be your pirate. No cutlass, no patch. Now, let's get back to the business end of the deal, please.
Well, sir, you've heard of the Opal of Ramses?
Opal? Well, yes.
Owned by King Ramses, and a priceless objet d'art.
Only wasn't it supposed to have brought hard luck to this ancient Egyptian king and hard luck to everyone that's owned it since it was dug up?
Oh, sure, Mr. Chambers. Superstition. Pure, baseless superstition.
So how come Robbie Tamville is so anxious to get rid of it?
Well, he's had a run of bad luck. Now that it is offered for sale, I have the opportunity to purchase it.
Yeah, you and this, what's his name?
William Zuckel.
And good old eccentric Tamville makes it a bidding contest between you and this, William Zuckel.
I'm to come dressed as a clown. There's the costume. Do you like it?
Yeah, it's peachy.
William Zuckel is coming dressed as a Persian prince.
Anyway, one way or another, tonight, Robbie Tamville gets rid of the ring.
Yes, he'll have the opal there tonight at the party. First, he'll interview Zuckel, and then he'll interview me. Whoever bids highest, that one gets the ring. There'll be contracts to sign, and then the cash is to be deposited with his bankers tomorrow.
How much is that thing worth?
Oh, about $250,000. I know a collector right now who'd pay $200,000.
And my job?
To accompany me back to town as bodyguard, and to remain with me as custodian of the opal until I can reach my office tomorrow, and where proper transferals of insurance can be executed.
Okay, I'll see you tonight. I'll be there, Petey the pirate. Afternoon, Mr. Reiner.
And remember, you know the costume. I'm the clown.
So, that evening, you're living it up amongst the swells. Everybody's wearing masks and everybody's wearing costumes, but your client, the clown, hasn't shown up yet. But meanwhile, you've latched on to a female with a lush and lovely figure, incongruously attired as a witch. You've danced, you've chortled, you've chuckled, but now you're dying of curiosity. So you waltz her off to a corner.
Yes, my dashing buccaneer. Pray, what wish you of the witch?
Unmask a witch, else this pirate walks the plank. If anything as prosaic as a plank can be found in this diamond-studded shack.
Will you unmask, too? Because I'm just bursting with curiosity.
You take your mask off and she follows suit, and brother, you've hit the jackpot. Blue eyes, tiny nose, dimples, and a wicked little smile that just verges on being seductive.
Like?
Oh, I love.
Good. Because I like what I see, too. So, let's get acquainted. My name is Patricia Holmes.
Peter Chambers.
What do you do?
Well, I'm a detective of sorts.
Detective. How very interesting.
Yes.
You look like an actor. A leading man type, you know.
Yeah, and you like an ingenue. Say, what do you do?
I'm a doctor.
A doctor. Well, now.
Disappointed?
Oh, I'm flabbergasted.
For further information, over 21 and unmarried, specialize in fluoroscopy and x-ray.
Look, Doc, I got a small pain that hurts me here, see?
I conduct my examinations at my office.
Oh, I'd love to visit.
You may at that. I combine my office and my apartment. 441 Park. I didn't take my car. I was driven here by a group of friends. So if you've a car here...
I have.
Well, Mr. Chambers, after this party, I'd admire to have you take me home.
And there isn't a thing in the world that I'd admire more, Doctor.
Well, thank you.
But all the while you're talking, some joker's jostling you from the rear. True enough, the joint is crowded, but that crowded it ain't. And finally, you whirl on the guy who's wearing the toga of a Roman senator.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mac. It's a little crowded here.
Wait a minute, Buster. It's not that crowded, so take it...
Real sensitive, dear old private optic, eh? Is it because he's engaged in conversation with so beautiful a dame?
Louis Parker! Detective Lieutenant Louis Parker, New York City Police Department. Fine cop, good companion, and great friend. You introduce him to the lady.
Good to know you, Miss Holmes.
Likewise, Lieutenant.
Hey, what are you doing here, Louis?
Well, I got a hunch it approximates your reason for being here.
Oh?
I'd like to talk to you, Pete, if...
That, Miss Holmes, means that the courteous lieutenant would like to talk to me alone, but in the circumstances, he finds it difficult to express.
Your beauty, Miss Holmes, makes it even more difficult.
Hey, listen.
You like
You're
it?
most gallant, Lieutenant. If you promise not to keep Mr. Chambers away too long.
I promise.
Good enough, then. I'll see you later.
Is she cute, Louis?
Now, listen, Pete. I'll tell you why I'm
here. Develops Tamville isn't too eccentric after all. What with carrying that opal ring around on his person, he invites Parker to his party so as he can have some law and order around the house, just in case. You give Louis the dope on why you're present.
Which means that outside of you and me and Tamville, the only ones who know that this ring is here tonight are George Reiner and this William Zucco. That's straight from the horse's mouth, which is Tamville. Now, Pete... Hey, look.
You look, and you see the Persian prince strolling out to the garden. He looks hot, and he's taking off his mask.
Let's go join him, Petey, just for the heck of it, huh?
Yeah, it's cooler out there. Mustn't forget the bottle.
Oh, we mustn't. This is Parker's night for relaxation.
You bring a bottle and 3 glasses out to a table in the garden. The Persian prince is nearby, mask off. You call him over, introduce him, and offer a drink. William Zucco is a tall guy whose black eyes give off about as much expression as a couple of shuttered windows in an empty house. You're about to hand him his glass when it slips to the ground. Well, you can't hand a Persian prince a dirty glass, so you pick it up, wipe it clean with a handkerchief, and you try again. Then you pour for the 3 of you, and you all drink.
Good. That hits the spot, as they say. Thank you, Mr. Chambers.
Would you like another, as they say?
No, thank you.
You know, you look real right handsome as a Persian prince, Mr. Zucco.
Oh, no, not really. That was Robbie Tamville's idea. And you don't cross Tamville, not when you intend to do a little business with him.
Oh? You, intending to do business with Mr. Tamville?
Well, yes, I think so.
Yeah, we'll see. July 13th, 1954. Crime and Peter Chambers here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Thanks for tuning in to Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Now more of Crime and Peter Chambers, starring Dane Clark, from July 13th, 1954.
Just then, a butler comes out and tells Zucco that Tamble is ready to see him. You all go back into the house, and the butler opens an oak door for William Zucco. You can see inside. It's a big room with wide French windows on the far side opening to another garden. Tamble's inside, the only guy at the party not in costume. Zucco goes in, and the door closes. You lose Parker, and you find Patricia home again, and you keep her with you. And finally, Zucco comes out and goes up a flight of stairs, and then, not 5 minutes later, your client, the clown, appears. You wave to him, but he doesn't wave back. He proceeds directly to the oak door, goes in, and then the shots are from Tamble's room, and you and Parker bust in there fast. The French windows are wide open. There's no one in the room except Tamble, and he's very dead.
All right, everybody out of here. I'm Detective Parker, police. Now get them out, please. Everybody out. Come on, you stick around, Petey. Out. That's right, out. I know. Nice, huh?
Yeah.
Real nice. Whoever pulled it beat it through those French windows. But the gun's here. You pick it up with the pencils with the trigger guard. Like so. Hey, Pete.
Huh?
Take a look. That barrel, look at the scratches. Fresh ones.
Yeah. Hey, it looks like there was a silencer on that barrel, Louis, not too long ago. But, say, we heard the shots.
Yeah. Any ideas?
Not a one, you?
Not on this silencer bit. But I got a lot of ideas on friend murderer.
Really?
You saw who came in here last?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, your client, that's so. The clown guy, mask and all, but the only clown at the party.
Now, look, Louis, don't let's jump at conclusions.
Jump at conclusions? Pete, this conclusion don't have to be jumped at. This comes up, it hits you on the jaw like a hook from Marciano. Well, let's have a look at the late Mr. Tamville. Now, ain't on him, Pete. Motive for murder? An opal ring worth maybe $250,000. Missing.
15 minutes later, the joint is jumping with cops. The search of the ground turns up a clown's costume. And an idea starts to percolate in your mind. So you do a little searching, too. You pick up an item which might be of unusual interest, and you safely deposit it in your car. No guest is permitted to leave until he or she is thoroughly searched by an expert. And that turns up nothing, no opal ring. But the search of the guest does develop one item of importance. One guest is missing. Your client, Mr. George Reiner. Driving down in the car, there's Patricia home, there's Parker, and there's you.
Mr. George Reiner. Well, I'm saving him for me. No use sending anyone else. If he's skipped, he's skipped. If he's at his apartment, then he's for me, personally.
But why, Lieutenant? How?
I won't go into the why, but here's the how. He bumps Tamville, cops that opal ring, goes through those French doors, gets rid of the clown costume, and blows, period. I sent that gun downtown well in advance. I'm curious about the check on that, Pete.
Which means that after we drop Miss home, we stop first at headquarters,
Yeah,
huh?
sure. Mm-hmm. Then we call on Mr. Reiner.
Very good. Very satisfactory.
What are you so happy about?
Just a minute.
What are you reaching in the glove compartment for?
This.
The glass? Well, what's the...
Handle it gingerly, Lieutenant. You're going to do a fingerprint check on it. Now, one set figures to be mine. I'm very curious about the other set.
Where did you get that glass?
Stole it. A memento from Tamble's party. Hey, Louis, will you have that fingerprint check done for me?
Sure, Petey. If you insist.
You deliver Patricia home, and you promise to come back there to bring her up to date on developments, no matter what the hour. And then you deliver Parker to headquarters, and you wait in the car while he goes in with the glass. When he comes out, he's got a peculiar glint in his eye. He tells you the fingerprint checks on the glass will take some time, but that he's put a rush on it. And then he clams. And when Parker clams, he's tighter than a barfly at curfew time. And finally, you're at George Reiner's apartment.
Oh, Mr. Chambers, I'm so glad to see you.
But Parker pushes through and shoves a gun under his nose.
Mr. Reiner, is this your gun?
Wait, let me see. Yes, it's my gun.
Well, it's nice of you to admit it, but whether you admit it or not, the serial numbers prove it's your gun. Fingerprints on it are smudges, but ballistics show this gun killed him. Now, any way you look at it, kiddo, you're up the creek.
Killed? Killed whom?
Oh, will you look at him making with the innocent baby act. Killed Robbie Tamville.
Robbie Tamville? Mr. Chambers, is this true?
Yep.
Well, who is this man?
Lieutenant Louis Parker, homicide, who thought he was going to have an evening of relaxation. You deny that you killed him? You stole that ring, that opal from King Tut or one of those other wrapped-up mummies?
Of course I deny it.
Brother, you were seen to go into his room. The shots were heard. The gun was yours. The bullets from the gun killed him. The French windows were open. The clown costume was found on the grounds. You were the only guest missing. And you knew he had the opal on him. Now, where's the ring?
I don't have it.
Now, look, you don't...
Wait a minute, Louis. Just a minute now. Mr. Reiner, you heard the lieutenant.
Yes?
Do you have any explanation?
Well, I can only tell you what happened.
Well, what did happen, Mr. Reiner?
Well, sometime after you left, my doorbell rang. I answered it, opened the door, but there seemed to be no one there. I stuck my head out and was struck on the back of the head. That's all I remember. When I regained consciousness, I was bound and gagged. It took me hours to untie myself. When I finally did, I looked about thinking it was a robbery, trying to see what was stolen.
Was anything stolen?
Well, just my clown's costume and my gun.
Okay, Mr. Reiner. Suppose, just for the sake of my friend here, whose client you are, suppose I try to buy your story. Now, show us some proof, huh? Where's the rope that bound you, or is it wire or tape, maybe? And the gag around your mouth? Where
I'm
is
sorry, Lieutenant. I was bound by a couple of my neckties, and the gag was one of my own handkerchiefs. But I do have a bump on my head.
Oh, I'm sorry, Pete. I gotta take this guy downtown.
You tell Parker where he can reach you, and then off they go to headquarters. And off you go to Patricia Holmes' apartment. Dr. Holmes is comfortable in satin lounging pajamas, and no doctor ever looked better in lounging pajamas. You bring her up to date on your facts, and then she takes you about, showing you her equipment. The fluoroscopes and the x-ray machines. And then you're settling down in a comfortable divan with a good doctor for some conversation about doctoring. When...
Hello?
Is Peter Chambers there?
Just a minute. It's for you, Peter.
Oh, thanks. Hello?
Is the dope on that glass deal of yours?
Oh, yeah, Louis.
One set of prints, yours. The others belong to a guy, Bill Zukalski.
Kulski. What about him?
Well, he's a Russian emigre. He used to work in a circus. He ate ground, glass, nails, tacks, one of those guys. He did a bid about 8 years ago for assault, then disappeared.
Hey.
Now, look, Pete, what's your interest in the guy, and who is he?
Look, Louis, pick up our Persian prince and bring him down here to Patricia Holmes' place and do it fast.
Persian prince?
William Zucco.
You know what you're doing, Pete?
Absolutely, and please, Louis, fast, huh? Half an hour later, Parker shows of William Zucco. You don't waste any time. You accuse Zucco of the murder of Robbie Tamville and the theft of the opal ring.
Ah, you are talking through your hat, mister. If I had that opal on me, they'd have found it. I didn't have it, and I don't have it.
Oh, yes, you have.
Have I? Then prove it instead of talking like a big guy and doing nothing. Talk is cheap. Proof. Prove it. Demonstrate.
First step in the demonstration is to clip him under the chin. And then you drag Zucco to Dr. Holmes' fluoroscope, and you stand him up behind it. And she starts the do-jigger going.
Hey, I see it. Clear as day.
Where?
Through the fluoroscope thing. It's in his stomach, clear as day, the ring with the stone in it. Come on out, Pete. Take a look at this.
Well, who's going to hold him up?
Out me. I'll hold him up. I got it.
Yeah. Sure enough, there it is. William Zucco, born Bill Zukalski, who can swallow nails and tacks and glass. Oh, what a hideaway, eh, Louis?
Yeah.
How can you frisk a guy when he's got the loot in his stomach?
That could be some indigestion. July 13th, 1954, Crime and Peter Chambers. The conclusion follows these words on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox.
You ever make a change and then think, why didn't I do this years ago? Well, that's how people feel about switching to Medishare for their health care, especially now with inflation the way it is. People are very happy with the savings. Most families save about $500 a month when they switch. It's a huge help when prices are going up so fast in so many other areas. And Medishare's customer satisfaction rate is double that of health insurance. It's just a different experience, and people really like that. Medishare is an alternative to health insurance. It's a community of Christians who share each other's healthcare bills, and it's been going strong for over 25 years. It really is the gold standard, the most trusted name in healthcare sharing. Find out why people love it, find out why they rave about the customer service, and find out how good it feels to save some money right now. They're super easy to talk to. Here's the number, 833-34-BIBLE. That's 833-34-BIBLE, 833-34-BIBLE.
Now on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, the conclusion of Crime and Peter Chambers, starring Dane Clark, from July 13th, 1954.
And 10 minutes later, when you've convinced Zucco, or Zukalski, or whatever his name is, that you've got him dead to rights, he straightens out the deal for you.
Okay, so you knock out George Reiner and you clip his clown costume and his gun, huh?
Yes, and I bring the stuff up to Tamville's and hide it in an upstairs room.
And then when you're drinking with us, the butler calls you. Oh, it's a good thing I dropped your glass, because I wiped it clean with a handkerchief, which, after I handed it to you, left only my prints on it and yours.
Inside, I killed him. I used a silencer on Reiner's gun. 1 bullet. Then I came out, went upstairs, put the clown costume over mine, went back into Tamville's room, supposedly as Reiner took the silencer off and put 3 more bullets into him. Then I ran out the French doors, threw the silencer into that brook nearby, but left the clown costume on the grounds.
Making sure to leave Reiner's gun in the room.
Then I came back, and once more I was one of the guests, the Persian prince. The way it looked, Reiner killed him, dropped off his costume, and ran away. I thought no suspicion would attach to me.
Well, you might have been in the clear if not for my friend, the shamus here. Pete, where did you get the idea for the prints on that glass?
From you.
Yeah, I know. From me?
Well, you're the guy that told me that aside from us and Tamville himself, only 2 people knew about that opal being on him. Reiner and Zucco.
Yeah.
Now, Reiner retained me and paid me a fee to act as a bodyguard when he would buy it. If he was planning robbery and murder, well, would a reasonable man do that?
No, he wouldn't.
Well, whom would that leave if anything happened to the opal?
Oh, our ex-circus bird here. Huh? Come on, pal. Oh. I'm going to have to handle you gently. After all, in a way, you're sort of a receptacle for evidence. And like that, you're pretty valuable.
So, after Parker and the valuable Mr. Zucco take their departure, you and the darling Dr. Patricia Holm finally settle down to some quiet conversation and peaceful tete-a-tete.
Oh, you Peter Chambers, you.
Oh, Doctor.
And there you've had Crime and Peter Chambers. Dane Clark was starred as Peter Chambers. Crime and Peter Chambers, transcribed, was created and written by Henry Kane. Others in the cast were Bill Zuckert, heard as Lieutenant Parker, Joe Boland as Reiner, and Nancy Wilder as Patricia. It was directed by Fred Way. This is Fred Collins inviting you to tune in next week, same time, same station, for Dane Clark in Crime and Peter Chamber.
The show that followed Rocky Fortune, which starred Frank Sinatra. Sinatra winning the Academy Award, and then he decided he didn't want to do the show anymore. Okay, so they ran the last couple of shows, and then they brought in this show with Dane Clark, Crime and Peter Chambers. It would run from April to September of 1954. July 13th, 1954, Crime and Peter Chambers here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Coming up next, the wind-up of another Yours Truly Johnny Dollar story, The Shady Lane Matter. This is Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Now it's time for the wind-up of another Yours Truly Johnny Dollar story. This episode, The Shady Lane Matter, the fifth part of the five-part Yours Truly Johnny Dollar story. This was originally broadcast July 13th, 1956, and this is when we find out who done it.
From Hollywood, it's time now for
Johnny Dollar.
Good morning, Mr. Dollar. I do hope I didn't wake you up.
I was already up, Mrs. Preeny.
Mrs. Well, how did you know?
I recognized your voice. What can I do for you?
Well, I know you'll think me terribly forward, but I have to see you, Mr. Dollar, right away.
All right, I'm in room 22. Come on up.
Oh, good heavens, I couldn't possibly do that. After all, you're a man, and I'm...
And you're a woman. Mrs. Preeny, I'm sure you haven't come into town this morning to play footsie. So let's both relax and forget about the fact that...
This is a small town, Mr. Dollar, and you know how people talk here.
Yeah, I know. And what are they talking about this morning?
Well, the murder, I suppose. And, Mr. Dollar, I've got to see you right away. I've done a horrible thing, and I'm ready to confess.
Tonight and every weekday night, Bob Bailey in the transcribed adventures of the man with the action-packed expense account, America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. From Special Investigator Johnny Dollar, location Shady Lane, Vermont. To the Home Office, Star Mutual Insurance Company, Hartford, Connecticut. Assignment, The Shady Lane Matter. Expense account continued. Item 10, 55 cents. A cup of coffee for myself and a pot of tea for Mrs. Sarah Preeny. She considered the hotel lunchroom an innocent enough place, and I met her there 5 minutes after she phoned my room. It was Mrs. Preeny who'd brought me into the case by writing the anonymous letter to the insurance company. Ellen Bates, a farm wife with no known enemies, had been shot to death. Mrs. Preeny, her best friend, had implied in the letter that Ellen's own husband, Ben, was guilty. And I was inclined to agree with her. Ben was the beneficiary of Ellen's $10,000 life insurance policy. There seemed to be no other motive, unless Mrs. Preeny was about to confess one.
She didn't do it, Mr. Dollar.
Who didn't do what?
That girl. She didn't warm the teapot. For 2 cents, I'd send it back and make her do it right.
Well, I'm a little pressed for time, Mrs. Preeny.
Oh, I'm not going to do it, really. I just said that. I wouldn't want to attract attention under the circumstances.
You mean the fact that I'm a man and you're a woman, and apparently the twain hadn't ought to be meeting, in Shady Lane, at least.
Well, people will talk, you know. And I didn't want Martin to know.
Why not?
Well, then he'd want to know why. Of course, I'd have to tell him, and...
Well, as a matter of fact, Mrs. Preeny, I'd kind of like to know why.
Well, it's... Oh, this isn't easy for me to say, you know.
Well, let's have a try at it anyway.
It's about that letter that I wrote to the insurance company that I didn't sign my name to.
Yes?
It was a terrible thing to do. Just terrible.
In what way?
Why, those things I said about Ben. Mr. Bates, I mean. Insinuating he might have had something to do with Ellen's death. Her murder, I mean.
You made some fairly definite statements, Mrs. Preeny.
They weren't true, Mr. Dollar. But I'm telling you the truth now. I know Ben didn't have anything to do with Ellen's death.
Mrs. Preeny, there were some other things you implied to me, too, you know.
Yes, about him and Millie Wells that works at the Shady Lane Cafe. I said they were carrying on before Ellen was killed. I made that up just to hit out at him.
Why?
I don't know, really. Ellen was wonderful, and I just loved her. But sometimes I'd get to thinking that... Not that my Martin isn't a fine man, you understand. Steady, reliable. You know, you've met him.
Oh, yes, I'd say your husband is quite steady and reliable.
I didn't want you to think that I was saying anything against him. But life on a farm isn't easy for a woman at the best, Mr. Dollar. Sometimes she gets silly notions, I guess.
What sort of notions?
Oh, a woman's human. She wants a little warmth, understanding. That's all. Nothing more. You understand what I'm saying.
Yes, I think I do.
But Ben Bates, well, he didn't even look at me. Didn't see me. That's all I wanted. Just for him to look at me. But he didn't do it, Mr. Dollar. Not even once.
I left her sitting there in the stark, bare wooden booth in the lunchroom, sipping her prim cup of cold tea and trying to hide a red-faced confusion behind the shreds of decent dignity. Constable Bramler was right. Scratch the surface of Shady Lane anywhere, and you found a human passion just beneath the skin. Good morning, Constable.
Yeah, morning, Mr. Dollar. Sleep well?
So-so. How's Grody Hawkins?
Still asleep, back there in his cell.
He admits stealing that squirrel gun from Ben Bates' mantle the week before Ellen was shot, and claims he sold it to Martin Preeny the week after the murder.
Yeah, so by his own admission, the gun was in Grody's possession the day of the killing.
But Grody claims the gun is rusty and hasn't been fired in years.
Yeah, whether it's rusty or not, Grody didn't kill nobody.
Have you been out to the Preeny farm yet to pick up the gun?
Nope. Figured you might like to do that yourself. You can use my car if you want to. Cost you another $3, though.
How did you make a living before I came along?
It wasn't easy. Traffic tickets, mostly. New turnpike's going to stop all that, though. Misses the town complete.
Along with Ben Bates' farm, huh?
Yeah. Too bad they didn't stick to the original survey. Made that place of his worth something, maybe.
And it might have saved his wife's life.
Still beating that dead horse, eh?
Oh, Ben Bates was up against the wall. A worthless farm, mortgage for $7,500 to Martin Preeny, a strong sense of moral obligation to pay it off, an invalid wife who would never get well, with a $10,000 policy on her life.
Murder ain't in Ben's nature. I've told you.
Then whose nature is it in? Mrs. Preeny's, maybe? She came to see me at the hotel a little while ago.
You don't say so.
She wanted to explain why she'd lied about Ben.
Uh-huh. Reckon 'twas because he wouldn't pay no attention to her.
Who told you?
Figured it out. Reckon Martin ain't too easy a man for a woman to live with. Too straight-laced, tight-fisted. And Ben right next door that-a-way, fine-looking young fella. Her running in all the time, taking things to Ellen. Bound to want to be noticed. Yeah, it's the nature of a woman.
What about Ellen, Mr. Bramler? She was your niece. What was her nature?
Ain't so easy to figure your own kin, Mr. Dollar. Reckon 'twas just her nature to be a victim, kind of.
I drove slowly through the early morning countryside, lush and green, still moist from the night dew, and not yet touched by the heat of day. Farm after farm, snug and smug and safe. But Ellen Bates, a woman who never harmed anyone in her life, had lived on such a farm. Yet a bullet had crashed through the window and found her. I'd left the car parked in the yard and walked on up to the porch. The door opened before I had a chance to...
Oh!
Oh, good morning, Mrs. Preeny.
You surprised me, Mr. Dollar.
Is your husband at home?
Yes, he's in there working on his accounts. I was just going to take some strawberry preserves to Mrs. Thrasher up the road. She hasn't been feeling too well.
Sorry to hear it.
You're not going to say anything to Martin about... Well, you know, what about...
I wouldn't think of it, Mrs. Preeny.
Thank you. I have to take these preserves to Mrs. Thrasher. You just go right on in, Mr. Dollar.
Yes, thanks. Mr. Prini.
In here. Come on in.
Sorry to bother you this early in the morning.
Oh, Mr. Dollar. Just finishing my accounts for the fiscal year. What can I do for you, sir?
Well, unless I've been misinformed, you bought an old squirrel gun from Grody Hawkins a while back.
That's right. It's hanging there over the fireplace. Quite a bargain. Unless he stole it someplace.
As a matter of fact, he did. From your neighbor, Ben Bates.
Then I'm out the price. I'll take it over to Ben this afternoon.
Mind if I take a look at the gun, Mr. Prini? I'm trying to check up on Grody's story.
No, go right ahead. I'll just finish this total while you're at it. Then we'll have time for a chat.
He went back to the ledgers on the table in front of him, and I reached up and took down the rifle, down from its hooks above the mantel. Grody had told the truth. There was rust in the barrel and breech. The gun hadn't been cleaned nor fired in a long time. The hooks over the fireplace were old and rusted, too. They'd been there for years. And suddenly I knew.
Find what you were after, Mr. Dollar?
I found more than I was after. I found out who killed Ellen Bates.
Grody Hawkins?
No. No, not Grody. And not Ben Bates. Even though he is named as beneficiary of that $10,000 insurance policy.
What do you mean?
It was somebody who stood to profit even more than Ben did from that $10,000.
Who?
Somebody who made a $7,500 loan out of kindness. That alone should have tipped me off, Mr. Prini. As Jed Bramler says, it wasn't in your nature.
My nature?
But of course it wasn't kindness. At the time, it was good business because a turnpike was planned that would make the farm worth double the loan. But the road fell through and you were stuck with a worthless farm, unless Ben could get money to pay you. I imagine that's when you started thinking about murder.
Are you accusing me of murder, Mr. Dollar?
Those hooks over the mantel have been there a long time. Where's the rifle that hung there before you bought this one from Grody Hawkins?
There might not have been one.
The neighbors will remember.
Let me just put down this final total. Well, I had a good year last year. Very good year. I doubt it's going to be that good this year. No regrets, Mr. Dollar. It's like farming. You take risks on drought, frost, insects. Sometimes you make a mistake and lose. I knew I'd made a mistake the second I pulled that trigger. After that, it was just a matter of time. The gun is buried out behind the barn. I'll get my hat.
Item 12, $94.35. Incidentals in Shady Lane and transportation back to Hartford. Expense account total, $186.60. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Now, here's our star to tell you about next week's intriguing story.
Next week, a diamond, a huge one, the Star of Cape Town. A piece of ice that should have been kept on ice. Join us, won't you? Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, starring Bob Bailey, is transcribed in Hollywood. It is written by Les Crutchfield and produced and directed by Jack Johnstone. Heard in this week's cast were Jeanette Nolan, Forrest Lewis, Shirley Mitchell, Will Wright, Bert Holland, and John Daner. Musical supervision by Amerigo Marino and Carl Fortina. Be sure to join us on Monday night, same time and station, for another exciting story of yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Roy Rowan speaking.
There you have it, another sad one, July 13th, 1956. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Thank you for making us part of your day. Would you thank this station, support their advertisers? It's their kindness and courtesy that allow us to be with you each and every time you roll around here on your favorite station. If you miss a day here, though, you don't have to miss a single show. Our shows are available free of charge by going to my webpage, classicradio.stream. You can stream the shows there. You can download them by following some of the links we have put up there to various podcast engines. You can also learn more about building a classic radio collection of your own. You can find all of our social media links. You can contact me directly. Or if you appreciate the work we do, you can buy me a coffee. It's always a nice thing, and I thank those people who have done it already. And if you want to do it, I'll be more than appreciative, because that also is part of how we find new great classic radio theater shows. Thank you for tuning in, and please tell all your friends the great radio shows are right here at this spot on your radio dial. Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite station. Have a great day.